I'm going to talk about air movement. You can wrap your house up with insulation, you can put good performing windows in, but the Achilles heel is air movement, and especially in the wintertime when you're trying to warm your house and there's air going out quicker than you can warm it, it ends up being a problem. It's well sealed up. If you live in an older building, there is lots of leaks, and we'll divide the two up because you might assume that a new building is all fixed and all good, but we'll have a look and see what's going on. This is a very busy picture, but I put it up there in case you want to Google it yourself and you can see what's all of the different areas. But if we go to a black and white version, you can see that there are gaps all around the building, and most of them are in new buildings as well as old buildings. Not so much the chimney, although you can have chimneys in new buildings. And if we assign some percentages to them, you can see that each of them has different air leakage rates. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. An open chimney is actually more like 60% losses through the chimney, whereas this is, I've just got this off the internet and they say it's more like 14. But simple things like electrical outlets, they leak constantly, and in the Northern Hemisphere they actually have a jacket over the back of them so that the air leakage doesn't occur. In Australia, our external doors are quite a problem because they are a visual stop, but often they don't stop any breezes going in and out. Downlights have been handled recently. They're getting better, but they can still leak a little bit. And then you've got gaps around plumbing penetrations. The other one that often happens a lot is when a new house gets built and you put a ducted system in the roof. The people that install a ducted system are often very lax about sealing off things. They toss the insulation bats out of the way and cause a few other problems. So let's divide it up into new construction and existing dwellings. And in new construction, the building code says that now for bathrooms and wet areas, laundries, etc., the exhaust fans have to be rated at being able to push a certain amount of litres per minute of air, and that's been adopted from the Northern Hemisphere. The Northern Hemisphere have had this for years and years, and we're finally sort of catching up a little bit. Previously we had exhaust fans and you could turn them on, they made a noise. You would assume that they were doing the job, but if you actually tried to do the tissue and put them up against an exhaust fan, often they wouldn't even hold the tissue up, so they weren't really moving a lot. So even though it says there that a bathroom should have an extraction fan that moves 25 litres per second, and that's the extraction out of the building code itself, telling us it's 40 litres for a kitchen or laundry or 25 for a bathroom. Is this exhaust fan going to move 25 litres per second? Once it's manufactured and tested, one would assume that they might test the outflow at the exit point of the exhaust fan, but how far do you then test for restriction in the ducting? So in this scenario, I am assuming that you're not getting 25 litres per second out of your exhaust fan. And then we have other interesting inventions where electricians and builders decide that let's put a few extensions on there and make it travel a certain distance, and then I'm looking at that and going, are we still getting our 25 litres per second? And then this one is way off in the distance, and the amount of restriction that's going on that one is definitely not 25 litres per second. So the problem is, in Tassie, if we have the middle of winter and it's -3 outside, the roof space might be 5, 8 degrees. The inside bathroom's running at between 18 and 21 degrees. So we've got hot, steamy air going out of the bathroom through our exhaust fan, gets into that ducting, and it's restricted. It's going to stall. So we've got nice, warm, steamy air, and it's stalled probably half a metre into this ducting. Then we have the scenario of it condensates, so we have a little pool of water in there, and then that gets fed every day. So we have this lovely little environment where we've got a little pool of water, it's being fed by nice, warm, moist air every day. What's going to happen? Things are going to start to grow. And inside the ducting itself, it might get a bit nasty in there, and I've been called to a couple of newer houses where the occupants have said, I've got a problem with my ensuite exhaust because 10 minutes, 15 minutes after we've had a shower, water starts dripping back out through the exhaust fan onto the floor. And they go, oh, we don't know why. Well, what's actually happening? And I go, I know exactly what's happening. It's got to the point where the ducting has actually filled up with water and can't do anything, and then it's starting to flow back into the room, and that's not only a risk to the building itself, but also a health problem as well. And that's in brand new construction. No one goes in the roof to see whether the ducting has been installed properly. The building surveyor, when he comes to do his final, ticks off on the smoke detectors and safety for glass and other things, but no one ever checks what's going on with the ventilation system. Then there is the argument that for a new building, to be able to move that 25 litres per second from the bathroom out, you need to be able to then feed that with at least 25 litres per second coming into that room. If you have a normal closed door, the restriction is such that often the exhaust fan starts to stall, and sometimes you can hear it. If you've got an exhaust fan on in a bathroom and you shut the door, you can hear the exhaust fan start to make a different sound because it's hasn't got enough air to be able to feed it. So we can get around that by simply installing a cavity sliding door. Cavity sliding door doesn't stop air movement. It is a visual block, and there are gaps in and around that door everywhere, which is fine if you wanted to feed a room from a ventilation point of view. But it becomes a bit of a trap when you have this sort of door system from your garage into your house proper, because you've got the visual stop, but you haven't got a blockage of air, and you don't want air from your garage coming into your house, because often it's a place where you store the mower petrol or other things, and the garage obviously drops in temperature in the wintertime. So a hinged swinging door with a good air seal is what you want from the garage internally. And that's what it looks like when you buy it as a frame. It's just a box that goes in the wall, not really well sealed. This has got nothing to do with anything, but I thought I'd throw it in there because a lot of people haven't seen a double glazed window that fails. And I thought, well, this is from a new building, and normally you would be looking through a clear pane to the outside. This double glazed unit has failed. So what happens is that the space in the double glazing condensates, and here it's all condensated up so you actually can't see outside. And I thought that was of interest just to throw in there. So let's look at some golden oldies. Often the golden oldies have condensation, and to deal with that, there's all sorts of old wives' tales about having to have doors open or windows open. Usually condensation in older houses is simply that there is a build-up from moisture levels in the building, simply from living in the building. Cooking, showers, things aren't being able to be exhausted out properly, so we end up with condensation. And when I do some troubleshooting, I've had a couple of places where one particular place, the lady would go around her house every morning, and she would have a towel per window, and she would take off moisture out of all the windows around the house in the morning, and the next day she would have to do it all over again. And her question to me was, how can that be? How can I take a full towel of water off a window today and it be there again tomorrow? And it was simply that the amount of cooking and other moisture production in the house was such that she was producing enough to condensate every day on the windows. This is a classic for a lot of the older buildings. It's a hangover from centuries ago when we used to burn kerosene lamps and other toxins and things. Having some ability to get rid of that out of the building was for good health. In a modern building, we don't burn those sorts of things anymore, and we don't need it. But if you have a house where you can see the daylight from outside, in the middle of winter we're trying to warm our building, so hot air rises, finds a hole going out through the wall, and it's all gone. So you're trying to warm your air while you're in that room, and your warm air is going straight out. So you're not actually benefiting from the warm air that you're producing, and you're helping warm the neighbourhood. Other ways to deal with air leakage: half a pack of UNO cards stops the window from rattling and makes it a little bit tighter. You'd be surprised at where the air leakage can come from. And older windows are probably the big one, whether they got rot or not. A lot of them don't close properly. If they rattle in the wind, you know that they've definitely got an air leakage problem. And sometimes heavy drapes can deal with that. They can slow the amount of air losses going from one side to the other, as well as a good heavy drape is equivalent to a double glazed window. So while the drape is across the window, it's helping the performance overall as well. A bit more rot with air leakage coming in. Another one that seems to be prevalent, and I didn't put it in the new build, is that if you go to a brand new building and it has a fridge alcove with overhead cupboards that are built in, if there is an opportunity to walk into that alcove and you look up behind the cupboards, you'll often see that there is an unfinished section of ceiling in that area that is open straight to the roof space. And it's one of those old wives' tales where the builder's been told that he needs to ventilate that space because a refrigerator overheats and it's a problem, they need to vent it out. Modern fridges don't need that, and there's insulation over the top of the gap anyway, so it's a pointless exercise. But it becomes a vermin trap in that vermin can detect warm air coming out of the building, and then they'll track that down and get inside the building. More places where we can get some air leakage, although that one's sort of getting beyond it. That's yours truly trying to get out of a hole after doing an inspection in the subfloor. And then we end up with scenarios where the exhaust fans in older buildings are pumping straight into the roof space. And in a situation where you've got a metal roof, it's not such a problem in a tile roof, but in a metal roof, it's considered a closed environment and it has trouble breathing. And we end up with a situation like this where over time the moist air from the exhaust fan is building up, and then we have mould that can start to grow because it's being fed every day from some moist, warm air. And in this particular place, the environment in the roof was not very good because we've got mould growing on all the timber work, and you can see by the moisture meter it's running at 30%. So normal timber should have a moisture reading of between 8 and 14%. So this particular roof space has got timber that's being constantly fed growing things, and that will then infiltrate back into the building and create an unhealthy building. Alrighty, question time. Man over here's got a question.
Can cold air come upstairs into the warmer living area?
Your name?
Arthur.
Arthur has asked if cold air can come upstairs in the building. Not normally. The stratification of air is usually warm, so warm air will rise and go up through a stairwell. Cold air can go up through a stairwell if there is a draft situation where there's air leaking out of the top level at a large rate that then invites cold air coming in down the bottom to go up, so you'll end up with a draft going up the stairs. So yes, it can.
Is that the problem in your house, sir? It's a rare one. Yes, yes. Questions? Talk about your own house? No? Wayne, we rented a house in Glengarry and it had a very large water heater downstairs and it had an open staircase into upstairs. You couldn't heat downstairs, but upstairs was the mouldiest thing I've ever seen because all of the moisture, I guess, went upstairs.
Yep.
And then the heat went up there?
Yes, yeah, so yeah, everything, stratification, hot air rises, yep, way it goes.
What would you do about that? What could you do about it?
Two things. One is the air is escaping from somewhere, so often exhaust fans that haven't got a damper on them or they're not ducted are leaking. That then invites air to come in from somewhere else. Often, if it's a two-storey, it'll come in down the bottom, around the front door, windows, other points of entry. So it ends up being a constant cycle of air coming in, air going out, which during spring, summer, autumn is okay. But in the dead of winter, when you want that warmth in your building, you don't want your warm air disappearing.
So you're sitting here today, you've got mouldy problems. What's step one? Get it assessed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, probably find out the source. Yeah. If any problem in a building is to find the source. Once the source is dealt with, then you can work with whatever's going on then. Yep.
And is it one of those DIY things, or would you call it
Again,
professionally?
No, well, it depends. I mean, you can. Dr. Google fixes everything, so you can do your research and have a look. If you think you've got air leakage and you're not sure, easiest way is to buy a packet of incense, light the incense stick, and then go to wherever you think it is. If it's a PowerPoint, just put it in front of the PowerPoint. It's better on a windy day so that you've got that negative pressure coming out of the building. You can go around windows. Incense smoke is so sensitive that you've only got to get a whisper of a breeze going past and it'll show up straight away.
Wow.
Yep.
And some houses, like our house is very old, it's almost like unless we pull all the windows out and replace them, there's a fair whack of moisture in the house and it's just on the glass in winter. It doesn't matter how many times we wipe it down, it just never goes away. Is that unhealthy for us?
Not necessarily. As bodies, we like a moisture level of around anything from 45 to 55% humidity. So the moisture's not a problem unless it accumulates and then starts some other cycle. Then it becomes a problem. But if you've got continuous condensation, it means that the internal part of the building is hit overload. So the extra moisture can hide in carpets, in drapes, in plasterboard itself. And as soon as it starts to hit window or window frames, it means that the building is overloaded. And then you need to start looking at, well, how can I duct out what we're making every day? And it's surprising how many litres of moisture we just breathe out as a body. So I sometimes go to places and they go, oh, we've got a bedroom on the south side and the moisture is just pooling across the bottom of the window sill. And I look at it and go, oh, how many kids sleep in here? And we've got 2 boys sleeping in here. So then you've got 2 lots of moisture pumping out, and it can be litres per night going out. So Then during the day, the bedroom door gets closed, so it's locked in there, and then next night we just add to it again and add to it again and add to it again, and then it keeps on going.
25% of Australians are allergic to mould. Did I hear that?
Don't know.
Yeah, I did.
I'll take your word for it.
Zara Dakota told me.
There you go.
Yeah, and of that 25%, another 25% of that quarter, it's deadly. So if you've got mould,
there's lots of different types.
Yeah, it is. Any
Cool.
other questions for young Wayne? We're only going to get him once for free. No? You sure? You can ask him questions on anything. Really, he's quite smart.
I don't know the Tesla Lotto numbers, sorry.
Oh, well, thank you, Wayne.
Well
and
done.
thank you to Consulting Plus for coming along.